Joining us for a little bit this morning is Caddo Commission President Stephen Jackson. Hey, Mr. Stephen, how are you today? Merry Christmas.
Good morning, Merry Christmas, Robert and Erin. Hope everything's going well.
So, somebody we know who's coincidentally the Caddo Commission President is having a little trouble with, is it the Shreveport Police? Tell us what you're doing and why all of a sudden so many people are a little upset at you.
Well, I don't necessarily have a problem with Shreveport Police. I think the men and women who put their lives on the line every day, day in, day out, to keep our city safe, I don't have a problem with them. What I'm simply trying to make sure that we do is that we hold the folks who we are tasked to lead our city and give direction to the department accountable. They came to the Caddo Parish Commission basically requesting a grant. And like with any grant dollars, especially with tax dollars, there's a level of expectation and accountability.
So
anybody has a problem.
Pardon me, at some point I would assume that you think that Caddo Parish and Caddo Parish taxpayers, that you're not getting your money's worth. What do you think the problem is, and who's telling you there's a problem?
Let's go back. I got a letter. We got a letter from the mayor asking that we purchase cars for a crime deterrent program. That's what the actual letter said. Those are not my words. It was that we needed to purchase those cars to help the city with crime deterrent. And so if crime is continuing to go up, then was the purpose and mission of this program and funding successful? That's simply accountability. If any nonprofit organization or government body receives federal dollars to say we're going to do X, Y, Z, then there's a level of expectation and report. Nonprofits all over our country, they give reports. And so all I'm trying to make sure is, did we get the return on investment that the mayor's office said that this program was intended for?
Typically, if you make a deal like this, you tell them this is going to be part of the deal up front. Did that come up when you gave them the money?
Absolutely. What we said we wanted to do is because, there's this sort of disconnect with the community. And what I will hear from a lot of folks is, the parish is not doing enough in the city. And so this was part of an effort to bring more resources into the city limits. And so how do we continue to justify doing things down the road if we have no level of accountability? When someone stops me while I'm at the grocery store, while I'm at church and say, hey, I call SPD'd. There was an issue that we had that could have been resolved, but we called them for easy math, for easy numbers. We called them at 5:30. Nobody arrived until, 5:50. And then the issue de-escalated from there.
You getting a lot of complaints like that?
Oh, absolutely. I have a young lady who had to go hide in the park a couple of weeks ago from a domestic violence issue, and she said she called dispatch, and they told her no one was available to take her to respond to her. She'd have to wait until somebody get there on a domestic violence issue.
Where do you think the problem is? Who's at fault here?
Well, I'm not one to sit back and say and play the blame game. What I think we need to do is we all need to have an honest conversation with each other. It's not so much as saying it's your fault, it's my fault. We all have a responsibility in addressing crime in this city. A year ago, we were talking about an uptick in crime. Today, we're talking about an uptick in crime. And so we have to be serious and we have to be honest about the reality that we're in. If it's a leadership issue, I talk to folks who work rank and file SPD every day. If it's a leadership issue, let's sit down and have an honest conversation about it without trying to tear one another down. We all have to work together. And what I see is lines get drawn, folks get entrenched in their own positions and say, this is my turf and not yours. But when they need funding, they're quick to come with the bucket out to the Caddo Parish Commission. It doesn't work that way.
Now, you're asking for GPS data from the Shreveport Police cruisers. What purpose will that serve? Do you think could it be effective for just knowing where they are? It's like the officers are doing something wrong, is what it sounds like.
What do you think you're going to find?
Again, this is not by saying somebody's doing something specifically wrong, but if folks are saying, hey, we made a phone call about a problem and someone doesn't respond until 25, 30 minutes later, when issues are de-escalated, it only takes a couple minutes or less than a couple minutes for something to de-escalate into a serious crime. If a person feels they have to take matters into their own hands. I was leaving Brookshire's a couple weekends ago, and a elderly couple told me the wife said, my husband sleeps with his gun next to the bed because we're afraid nobody is here to protect us. And so I'm just responding to my constituents and what folks are telling me. These are just asking questions. If everything is fine, provide the information and data. If
you were mayor of Shreveport, what would you be doing to address crime?
Well, I think there are several things that need to be done. We need to look at the leadership. I don't see a readiness or fire from our leadership right now with the Shreveport Police Department. What I see is a lot of folks who may just be on the job retired, and that needs to be addressed. Do you really want to be here, or are you just riding the clock? The other issue, we need to get out. We need to put folks out there and make sure that we have the resources and staffing levels. I'm also understanding that the homicides are not being cleared. You have homicides that are sitting for 2 and 3 weeks, and nobody's following up with the victims. Nobody's following up with these families to say, hey, we're working on it. We have this completed. We're looking at this. Nothing is being, and again, this is what folks are telling me. And so as their elected representative, I have an obligation to respond to them. So if someone's upset, it's time for us to get out of our feelings, as the young folks said. We can't be in our feelings about this. We have to be honest with the public.
So to this point, what kind of blowback, what kind of response have you gotten from other than on social media, from the Shreveport Police Department?
I haven't heard any blowback. I don't know. You guys would have to tell me what the blowback has been, because I haven't had any blowback.
City Attorney William Bradford says they're not sure if they're going to give you this data. Has he responded to you? What are they telling you about giving you this data?
I believe, again, if this was Department of Justice and they were getting a Department of Justice grant, they would have to report and provide updates and provide data for the program. If this was a Department of Justice, I see us as having made a grant here. We provided funding for a specific program, and I believe these are taxpayer dollars, these are taxpayer resources, and the public deserves to know what these resources will be used or has been used for. Is it being effective? The next time the program comes around, how can I go out? How can I make a conscious decision on what we need to do and what we need not to do if no one's willing to share the data and share the information? This is about public accountability. This is not about a witch hunt or anything else.